Jordan Gaither. This is to my right, Ashley Valenzuela. Say hello.
Hey everybody, Legal Queen LA for short.
Yes. 1-800.
1-800 Legal Queen LA, okay?
There we go. There we go. There we go. And we'll also be having attorney Brooklyn Morris with us very soon. So, what I want to do with today's episode is uh, earlier in some other episodes, we've talked about contracts, we've talked about NIL. Ashley, you do a very good job in the entertainment space, contracts, and you also happen to have, well, not happen to have, you do have excellent level of expertise in NIL and contracts. Can you sort of give us a breakdown of what that is?
Contracts, literally anybody who is even 18 and above, and sometimes younger, has signed, seen, read, or skimmed a contract. But in my world, contracts are kind of make it or break it. Um, you need a contract for every single creative work that you come up with. You need a contract if you want to be a pro athlete. You need someone to review your contracts because these are the terms to which that you're going to live or die by. You know, some people sign a bad contract and they get stuck in a deal for 10 years and they're fighting their way out of it for 7 of them. Moral of the story is read your contracts, but if you can, as you should, you should have someone else read your contract for you who is licensed to do so.
So I'm your client. I have an NIL deal. I'm a high school I'm a high school quarterback. I'm preparing to go to college or maybe the league, whatever. I have this contract. I give it to you. What's your advice for me?
So I have a spectrum of different types of clients. Some clients want to drop off their biggest project or their biggest problem on my desk and never worry about it again until I say sign it. Some clients want to be along with me for every step of the way. So they want to read it line by line with me. They know what they want out of it. They want me to negotiate it for them. It depends really on the type of client you are, the level that you're at. But essentially, I would read it, and there are a couple of different ways I would go from there. One, reading it and providing you with my notes so you can take it from there. That's the cheap way, and the if you have a good relationship with whoever you're negotiating with, or you drop it off to me. I do a complete review, which means I read it, I redline it, revise it, and then I negotiate it back with the other party. So that could take days, weeks, months, or years to fully negotiate a contract. But whenever you hear someone say red line, that means you get a contract back and it has all these strike throughs and additions, usually in red. And those are what I want for my client. And in my world, my motto is ask for the world and see what sticks. We're going to take it. We're going to take it there. And 9 times out of 10, the other party is going to want to argue about it. So that's where the negotiation piece comes in, where you really have to, know what you're talking about in terms of getting what is best for your client, or sometimes meeting in the middle and both ends compromising to get that contract signed.
What elements do you look for to determine what's a good contract and what's a bad contract?
I don't know if you guys would know this, but as an attorney, you learn, or even if you ever went to law school and you did something completely different, the first thing you really learn is the answer is it depends. The answer to every question is it depends. So I'm always going to give you that first. But broadly, a contract is literally offer, acceptance, consideration. Okay. That means they're offering you a deal. You want to accept it, and there's some sort of consideration, usually money, promo, merch, sponsorship, whatever it is. And that equals a contract. So, number one rule, if you ever see the words in perpetuity, run away. That's like contracts 101 right there. In perpetuity means forever. The only time you're ever going to want to sign something that's in perpetuity is if you're giving it away forever. and the person who's buying it or the person who's using the content, whatever it may be, has the right from you to use it forever in whatever context, period. But if you're doing a music contract, especially if you're doing something in the athletic world, you should never be signing anything that says in perpetuity, unless, I don't know, you're working with Madden or 2K and they want to use you in that game. I feel like that would be like maybe one of the only times or reasons you should consider something with that language.
So when you write contracts for your clients, what process do you take to make sure you're giving your clients everything that they're going to need?
It really is a push and pull because, of course, it always depends on the other side. Are we talking to Rock Nation or are we talking to your friend from another company? Because it's going to be harder and harder the higher the level that you are to get exactly what you want. So things to look out for. Another one, a big one in entertainment, is a sunset clause. If you're an artist, if I'm working for the entrepreneur, we never want a sunset clause. That means whoever you're signing the contract with, usually a manager, an agent, they're going to keep getting paid after your contract is up. So those are one of the things. If I'm representing the party who is the talent, never want a sunset clause. And I know you're asking like questions that you want one answer to, and I'm really sorry that I can't do that. But
I know it's just at this point, you just
but that's what I'm saying. It depends on the client. You sit down with them, and in the first meeting,
hmm
you kind of say, in the perfect world, what is your best case scenario that you would want out of this contract? And usually they'll have like five or six things. And you want to figure out a way to get all of them. So you ask for all of them. You might end up with two, you might end up with four. But when I'm creating the contract or when I'm negotiating the contract, we're asking for every single last one of them in the way that benefits my client the most, and again seeing what sticks with the other party.
Okay. So speaking of contractual terms that you do want that are in your favor, do you ever discuss with your clients like, hey, sure, you can get this one thing you want in the contract, but just be aware that if you're getting what you want, there's going to have to be some give and take. Can you walk us through like how that works with your clients?
It's always going to be a give or a take. For
hmm
example, recently there was a distro deal I was working on, and it was a standard, just boilerplate contract, and that really just means regular terms that you're going to see in any of that same type of agreement. So it was a 75-25. The company keeps 75%. I'm sorry, the artist keeps 75%, the company gets 25%. But as the individual's representative, I want an 80-20 split or maybe even a 90-10, depending on, is this company going to do what they're saying they're going to do? Are we making a lot of money? Are we making a little money? But if it starts as a 75-25, I'm always going to automatically want to negotiate for a higher percentage for my artist because they are the talent. They're creating the work. They're putting their time and energy into this. It's their day and night job 24/7. So if that's the case and all you're doing is saying, "Hey buddy, put this on your radio show," we could have done that ourselves.
Why do you like contracts?
Honestly, that's a great question. I'm not sure because when I started law school, I was like, oh, I'm going to be so good at criminal law because I was a criminology major. I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it. And then I got into my first year, my first semester, and contracts and crim law were in the same first semester. And I found out like the complete opposite. I hated crim law, and contracts I was like, wow, I get to argue for fun. I mean, for not for fun, I get to argue for my career, you know?
So basically, you use your skills of talking a lot to benefit you in the law.
Absolutely. I saw a meme and it was like, for all of those kids that got kicked out of class for talking too much. What do you do for a career now? And I'm like, talk
So you've talked a lot your whole life,
all my life.
all your life.
But contracts, okay, so I love words. Before I ever even became a lawyer, I love music. I love words. Music runs in my family, it runs in my blood. But I've always been a writer. I've always loved reading. And so contracts, I get the book or the script or whatever it is, and I get to rewrite it how I want, how I see fit. So I think that was really my first I like this because I always was good at English and language arts and debate class, and you throw all of those together and you really come out with contracts in law school.
So you like contracts. What else do you like?
Trademarks. I'm like such
Trademarks.
I don't know why I'm like this. I feel like a schoolgirl crush on intellectual property. I love trademarks. I don't know what it is, but I'll talk to you about trademarks for the next 12 episodes. And you're going to learn something every time. That's why I used to do Trademark Tuesdays. If anybody follows me on Instagram, Legal Queen LA, Trademark Tuesdays, I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back because a lot of people love that. You get a little bit of info here and there.
So tell us about trademarks.
What do you want to know?
Okay, so I have an NIL deal, and included in that NIL deal are assignments. And someone says, "Well, what's an assignment?" And then you would say,
Say that means that you're giving the company or the brand or whatever, the right to use your name, brand, likeness, voice, trademark as freely as they want. You're assigning them the rights to market you and essentially just use your name. But the number one thing I will say about trademarks that everybody gets confused, intellectual property has five different pieces to it. Trademarks are just for names, words, brands, and logos. So literally just words and logos. If you put it into even simpler terms, trademark is your brand, your name, your slogan, your logo, your phrase. Copyrights, on the other hand, are completely separate. Completely separate. They are created works, like physical creation. So copyright, creation, trademark, brand. And then for some reason, everybody also throws LLCs interchangeable with trademarks. And an LLC is just a business formation. So if you form your own business, I love that for you. It's still not trademarked and you do not own that name, that brand, or whatever logo you associate it with. These are all separate entities.
"Can you explain why you don't own that logo, that name, that brand?"
Yes. So an LLC is similar to a corporation, but for I would say smaller scale businesses, it's literally you're just creating a business. But if you're creating, keep it legal in California, keep it legal LLC in California, there might be a keep it legal corporation in Pennsylvania, and you guys have nothing to do with each other. Now, if you want to avoid that, you file a trademark and you trademark the words keep it legal so no one else in this entire country can name anything keep it legal in the same industry.
Now that we understand trademarks and we understand branding, then also let's say in the contract it says, well, this trademark will only be responsible for this class. And obviously, like when you are going to apply for a trademark, you have to apply under a class, and the class basically are different type of subject categories of the type of mark that you would be applying for. Could you give us a little bit more information on that, please?
Good job, Jordan. Good
You
job,
didn't, you
Jordan.
didn't know, you didn't know I
I'm
knew.
such a trademark
You
nerd. I
didn't
don't
know.
know. No, that makes me so happy. um So yes, a class is kind of synonymous to an industry. So like food, beverage, entertainment, advertising, clothing, these are all different classes. And with a trademark, Um, let's say Nike. Maybe they started out just for shoes. I'm not sure. But that's a separate class than clothing, hats, sweatpants, all of those things. So not only do they have to file a trademark, they have to file a trademark in each class. And I'm sure that Nike has multiple, probably entertainment and education, business and marketing. I don't know, maybe they want to start a food line or whatever. All of those have to be applied for. So if you want to occupy all these sorts of different classes and industries up front, you have to put them all in your application. Well, that's $350 per class before you pay an attorney. So if you want to own your name across every class, there's 40-ish classes. I don't know the exact number. I think there's
It's
45 or
it's a
47.
lot.
Yeah, so whenever you're filing a trademark, if you have all the money in the world, you should file for every class that is applicable. But if you don't, you got to start with the one that's most important. For most of my clients, it's merch, which is class 25, and it's education and entertainment, which is class 41. And education and entertainment are together, which is kind of a cool thing for most people that I do work with because it's usually synonymous. You want to teach somebody something, you want to do a podcast, you want to do a website, but you also want to be in the music or TV or film space. So it's all under one class, which is nice. But let's say you wanted to do those two, which most of my clients do. That's $700, and you still got to pay me. So yeah, it is an expensive process. Usually, I don't know. I don't know what other attorneys are charging, but I charge 1850 for one trademark in one class, and that does include one class filing. So essentially, it's $1,500 plus the classes. So it is an expensive endeavor, but you should file it immediately because once you file it, your application is put in. That's when you can start policing other people. Hey, that's my brand. You can't use that. Hey, cease and desist. It starts from the moment you apply, not the moment you're registered, which is a misconception because trademarks can also take an extremely long time. Could be 2 years, could be 5 years. It depends on a lot of different things. Like I said, we could talk about this for 12 episodes and it still won't be enough information.
So where do I even go to apply for a trademark?
To a lawyer.
If I was going to do it on my own, where would I go?
Don't recommend.
Okay, so you could go.
USPTO.gov, USPTO.gov,
Say
United States Patent and Trademark Office. But highly do not recommend because guess what? Once you go and file that trademark by yourself, Jordan, if something is wrong, not because anyone's slow, stupid, unintelligent, ignorant, whatever, because trademark law is very tedious. There's a lot of caveats, there's a lot of requirements, there's a lot of specifications. If you don't do one thing right, then the trademark office is going to send you an office action. Basically, what that means is they're going to send you a long PDF of everything you did wrong or everything that they need from you to proceed. At that point, people want to look for an attorney. Well, guess what? Most attorneys don't want to take your trademark because at that point, they may not be able to fix it. Well, 9 times out of 10, a trademark attorney and intellectual property attorney will want you to start at the beginning with them filing your application because sometimes if you filed the application on your own or a different person filed the application, sometimes it's not fixable. And even if it is, it's going to take us a lot to untangle the mess or get around certain things or rectify the situation. And at that point, you're probably paying an hourly rate as opposed to the flat fee up front. When I say I charge X amount, that's for me to be on for the rest of your life. Well, the life of your trademark. That's one flat fee for the rest of your life. So you're looking at it like, oh, 1850. No, that's for the rest of your life. Unless you get late fees, unless you have to do renewals. Of course, there's extra fees that come into play. But for the negotiation, the legal research, the responses corresponding with the trademark office, I promise you don't want to do that. I promise you
so
don't.
So your price is not indicative of just filing and putting it in the system. It's also to track and make sure if there is an office action or a letter or some sort of addendum or legal documentation thereof asking you to provide more information herein to what might be needed of your client. You're saying your 1850 covers all that, correct?
Exactly. There are like once we have a consultation, I send my clients an email explaining what this fee covers, what it doesn't cover, and then also attach the classes, attach all the information that's needed. It is like a collaborative process to get all the way to the application filing. Once the application is completed, you won't hear from me or the trademark office for anywhere from 9 months to a year. But when you do, the goal is for the first time the trademark office looks at it for it to be approved. But that's why the collaboration up front is so important because we need to gather all these details. We need to be on the same page. We need to work together to make sure your application is ironclad. Because if you're waiting 9 to 12 months, you don't want an office action back because then that's going to take another 6 to 9 plus months to hear back on that office action. And then it just goes from there. So that's why I fully recommend on these sorts of things having an attorney from the beginning because it takes so long. You don't want to waste time.
Now, what's the difference between a trademark and a registered trademark?
So good question. And that goes into the symbols. Like if you see the little TM next to something, you can put that TM as soon as you file the application. That means trademark, obviously. And technically, there is a difference between goods and services. So technically, anything that's a service, like a legal service or something like that, it should be SM instead of TM. And there is an SM symbol, but nobody ever uses it. But TM is technically for goods, like clothing, shoes, etc. But once you are fully registered, the application's processed, they have no more questions. Uh, you get published in the Trademark Gazette. Nobody objects, and you're finally registered as a trademark. Then you move from the TM symbol to the R with the circle, and that means your trademark is registered. And then every certain increment of years, you have to renew your trademark and tell the office that you're still using this trademark. And if you don't, then it goes back out into the being available for the public to use.
Now, what if I have a product and I want to patent it and I'm not ready, but I still need to put it out? I can put out maybe like a provisional patent for maybe a year and then apply for an actual patent. Is that correct?
So now you're bringing in patents. That's a third piece of intellectual property that you need a separate patent bar licensure for. So I'm not even
Mhm.
going to provide any sort of advice on that because I am not a patent attorney.
Now that we've gotten very good information on trademarks, contracts, what legally is interesting to you today in the news?
What isn't interesting in the freaking news? Everything. It's ridiculous. 2025 is ridiculous. I can only imagine what 2026 is going to bring. I'm most concerned in this government shutdown scenario.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's on your mind about?
I may look, rich and bougie and all the things, but um not everyone around me is of the same stature, and a lot of things are on the line for a lot of people who are on government assistance. And we haven't been on a government shutdown since COVID. You know what I mean? Like, how are we back here? People need health insurance. I personally, I have had state health insurance. I need health insurance. There's people who need food stamps. There's people who need CalWorks. There's people who need childcare. Like, we can't keep playing with people's livelihoods. Like, rent is already expensive enough. You know, you can't support a family on a regular salary now. You have to have multiple jobs and all the things. So, like, it's just a bad situation.
So this is sort of leads us into your efforts that you have when it comes to advocacy. You are pretty big on advocating for people's rights, your rights. You've also had some personal issues with things that you've had to litigate and deal with. Let's talk about what makes the law passionate for you, and why do you care so much about the representation of the rights of other people?
Huh. So I guess everything goes back to childhood. I think everything really starts there. For most people, I come from a pretty, I don't know if tumultuous is the right word, but a pretty messed up childhood in some scenarios, in some ways. And I grew up wanting to be a teacher, then wanting to be a lawyer. My concentration in law school was social justice advocacy. I studied family dysfunction. I've studied, human trafficking, all these sorts of things. And I'm such an empath that, seeing homeless people on the street, I had a complete mental breakdown when I moved to Los Angeles and saw how bad it was out here. It's just who I am as a person. I've always been, an advocate for others, a voice for the voiceless. And I think it really does come from childhood. Like early as 5 years old, I'm responsible for, according to myself, taking care of my little sister. You know what I mean? And we've had unfortunate run-ins with the foster care system, and I've been treated a lot of kind of ways for being brown, and most of my family is also, you know, all of my siblings are half black. Their parents, their cousins, their friends, their family, all of our people are black. So there's like then George Floyd comes into play, and I'm out here passing out cards in the street, like, call me if you need a lawyer, call me if you need a lawyer. So, like, I couldn't turn it off if I tried. It's just in every aspect, if there is a wrong and there's a little person, I'm for the people instead of the corporation. And I don't know. It's just who I am on the inside as a person.
Now, you mentioned that your childhood was a bit tumultuous. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving pieces. I didn't really identify with one piece of my childhood until recently, actually. I am both first generation American on one side and a child of incarcerated parent on the other. Um, Drug addiction, sexual abuse, um, a sibling or two got taken away. I had to take custody of one of my siblings while I was in law school, and it was kind of like a deja vu, watching myself grow up situation. My parents had me when they were 16, so I'm also a children of teenage parents, in a backwoods country ghetto town, where people don't get out. They stay there forever. They pick drugs or alcohol or both. They have a whole bunch of kids. They never leave. Um, so pretty much a lot of that stuff. And my dad kind of rescued me and took me out of that environment and landed me in Florida, and gave me a pretty decent, great life in the suburbs. But the rest of my family was still back in Pennsylvania. So all of those things kind of molded me into really who I am today and led me to this exact career path that I'm in.
And when you say Pennsylvania, are you referring to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania?
Yes, outside of Pittsburgh.
Okay. And how were you able to manage all of these responsibilities uh, at a very adolescent age that you were?
God, God. I had, whenever I moved in with because my parents were both 16, but when my dad, like, got whipped into shape and took the grow up and take care of my responsibilities route, and he went and got his degrees and got his master's and all the things. But when he got full custody of me, he sent me with his parents in Florida. That's how I ended up in Orlando. And they spent a lot of time apparently programming me to accept the fact that I am not my sister's mother. I'm just a 6 year old, a 7 year old, you know? And so I guess I had to kind of be, it was just what had to be done. I don't know. I'm 5. You kind of work on autopilot at that time, I think. And it's just what had to be done. So for 20 years, it was just me and my sister, the one that's the choreographer out here in LA with me. It was just me and her for 20 years. And then we got all these extra siblings. But it was just a child becoming a parent without thinking about it, you know? And then I kind of had to be redirected like, this is not your job. This is not your job. But as I got older, it was my job again because it never went away. It's just who I was put to be here to be. And that's why I think that I enjoy management so much also in addition to being an attorney because I'm taking care of other people and their lives and their careers. And a lot of people are saying, oh, don't get into management, it's babysitting, you're just being a mom, oh, you're doing all this. And that's what I do anyway, you know?
Now, you mentioned that while you were in law school, you had to take custody of your little brother. Can you explain a little bit how that may have impacted you?
Yes, so it was actually my sister. My brother had just been born. So thankfully I didn't have to take him too because having a newborn and a 4 year old would have been entirely too much for a law school career. But um that honestly, it was my 3L year, also my last year of law school. But that honestly made me the best version of myself that there ever has been. Because again, it's who I am and it's what I do. But it put me in a routine. You know, I had to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had to get us ready. I had to get us breakfast. I had to get her to preschool. I had to get myself to law school. I had to pick her up. I had to make dinner. We had to do homework. We had to do bedtime. And it was just very good for me in that space because not only do I have to do this for me, but I have to do this for you. And there was kind of no room or moments to think about it. You know, she even went to school with me when I had night classes, and she would be in the back raising her hand, and she'd set up her book as her laptop and just be typing along with me. And all of my teachers got to, you know, they accepted it. They had no problems with it. You know, they went along with whether she wanted to answer a question or not. And if I didn't have class, she would cry because she wanted to go to school. Um, and even though it was really hard, working at a law firm, going to law school, and having a child, like I said, it really was motivational and it kind of made me the best version of myself because it wasn't just for me, you know, and not everyone is like that, but I feel like I work my best when I'm um, responsible for someone else.
Now, we've had many conversations, and this is the first time that I'm hearing about this. How were you able to manage a personal life in the midst of everything else that you just mentioned?
God, that's gonna be my answer for everything. Praise my God. It was an interesting 3rd year of law school, for sure. But I do have a kind of a big family, so my family did, you know, help and come on the weekends, or I'd take her somewhere on the weekends. But really, like I was just really locked in. It was class and it was work and it was us, you know. And I also was a guardian ad litem, and I had many different kids, but I did have the same kid for 3 years, and he's still a part of my life to this day. Now he's a teenager. Ugh. But I got to kind of involve him in our family too. So she wasn't by herself, we could do all these things together. So I really, honestly, I thought my life was going to be very different. I thought I was just going to move back to Orlando and adopt my sister and adopt my foster kid and just get a house and just be that. And then I graduated and I decided everybody needs to take care of their own responsibilities. I'm going to go live my own life. Up until I moved to LA, I did not, there was no personal life for myself. I did things occasionally, and a bunch of my friends obviously have kids, but it really just, it wasn't about me. I never made a selfish choice until I decided to move to LA. And that's why, you kind of see me out here doing everything that I've ever dreamed of and living my best life, quote unquote, because for so many years, 20 plus years, I have not been able to be selfish. You know what I mean?
Now, well, one first thing I want to say, uh, thank you for coming on the show,
Of course.
uh,
Thank you for having me.
and being a co-host, but also, congratulations and hats off to you for being able to be a marvelous person, to not only look out for others, but others that you don't necessarily have to, and embodying responsibilities and relationships and transactions on behalf of others. And this is really the the vital aspect of what I want for Keep It Legal, because it's not about contracts and memos and briefs and red lines. I mean, those things are cool, but this story that you're hearing right now, and not even story, because this is a real life thing, you should really, actually, you should be very proud of yourself. I'm very honored and proud to know you. Don't FaceTime her, folks. You will get a good talking to, as I did. I thought we were. I didn't even FaceTime you. I asked for permission, and it didn't go so hot. But thought I was being polite.
Let me back it up. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I'm sorry I don't like to talk on the phone.
Yeah, it's okay. But no,
Thank you.
it's amazing, and I want other lawyers to know that. It's okay for us to have moments that don't seem professional, but moments that we need. Because I've had many, probably hundreds of conversations with Ashley, and I did not know that until now. And what I'm doing with Keep It Legal, what we're doing is, who are you as a person? What makes you tick? What makes you feel good? What doesn't make you feel good? And from my experience with interviews that I'm having with attorneys, s- sometimes, turn into a matter of therapy. Let me put this out there. I'm not a therapist. Please don't, take it the other way. Nobody really cares what attorneys think
Right.
personally. And, I want to let people know that here on Keep It Legal, we care what you think. We care who you are, because we all touch somebody's life. And for one instance, if your attorney or you, the attorney yourself, finds yourself not in the best mood, or you're not able to show up for yourself that day, well, that arguably means that you aren't able to show up for the person that you're representing. So Ashley, I'm always inspired and marveled by your hustle, your detail. You keep me sharp and you keep me on point. And, that is a testament to the type of lawyer that we need today. We don't need lawyers who are lawyers. We need lawyers who are people.
Yeah.
Because when you have a client, that client is not a client. It's a person. They wake up just like you do. And so I just had to throw that in there, because these things that we discuss, they aren't the easiest of things. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Now that you okay?
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay. No, you're welcome. No, no, no. You, you, Yeah, I like your story, and I'm here to invest and help as best as I can. Um,
I think it's really important. That's why I'm so open, like with everything I've been through. I think it's really important. And I don't know if I've told you this before specifically, but like telling stories about what you've been through and who you are and all these things is really important because you can't help anybody else who's going through the same thing or even remotely similar without telling your story. Like you don't know who's listening, who heard 5 seconds of what you said and it changed their life. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm always happy to help or happy to share because there's been a lot of missteps, but there's been a lot of good things that have come from it. So I'm always happy to, you know, whatever questions you have or whatever or you're like, huh? Feel free because I feel like it could always help, even just one other person with what someone else has been through.
so speaking of stories, um, you met an individual in the midst of your life, and you ended up dating this person, and um, it ended up being rather difficult to the extent that you had to represent yourself, take legal action, and do your best to distance yourself from this person. Without going to too much detail to the extent that you can give, can you sort of give us a story, so to speak, on how you personally had to be your own advocate for a situation that you were going through?
So, um, number one, domestic violence is not okay. Number two, allowing domestic violence to occur without holding people accountable is also not okay. Um, I was in, I've been in two abusive relationships in my life. And one of them, it was my first love, and we were on and off for 10 plus years. And that, like, if you love somebody and you're with somebody for that long, a lot of things can happen. But in this relationship that you're talking about, I was together dating this person for less than 3 months. And for someone to be so angry within themselves that they can abuse somebody that they don't even know, because you don't know somebody in 2 months. You don't. That's a you problem, not a me problem. There's no way that I possibly could have made you that angry to try and run me over with your car. Uh as a grown ass man who's 40 plus. But after that, and often in most domestic violence situations and relationships, there comes a lot of manipulation. Where are you? I want to come see you. Are you okay? You see what happens when you're fighting? Nobody wins. Nobody.
Mhm.
I don't care. You're either, I'm calling the police, or I'm getting a restraining order, or I'm suing you, or all three, or both, or one. Doesn't matter. You're getting held accountable because I don't even know you. And you have a child. And now your child is in danger. And all I do in my life is advocate for children. So now you got me messed up in so many ways. So I go to the emergency room. My fingers are broken. Well, they weren't broken, but they were something, and they still hurt to this day. It's been 3.5 years. But
What happened to your fingers?
So, long story short, after 6 or 7 hours in a car in a road trip, I was being emotionally abused, um, being told all sorts of things, that I should die, I should kill myself, God hates me, I'm this, I'm that. Speeding in 100 miles an hour. The daughter is crying. She's only two, punching the ceiling, punching the side of the car, swerving, all types of things. And I'm begging to get let out of the car, begging to get let out of the car. I'd rather be on the side of the road. Wouldn't let me get out of the car. Then we finally get to where we're going, six hours later, and I get out, I grab all my things. I have an Uber waiting for me because I had family nearby. And I left my phone in the car, and it was a rental van. So I went and I pushed the button. If anybody's ever had a minivan, you know, you push the button. If it's in park, the door opens automatically. If it is not in park, the door does not open automatically. That's a very important piece to this story, right? So, open the car, reach in. I'm halfway in the van getting my phone out, and this man puts the car in drive and slams on the gas while I'm halfway in the car. So the door, the automatic door slams on my ribs. I fall backwards, and then the door closes all the way on my fingers, slams on my fingers. And I guess, I don't know, it didn't click in all the way, thank God, because he would have dragged me, but it clicked in enough for it to fracture my fingers. And I fell out onto the ground. This is 4 o'clock in the morning. It's raining. The Uber has no idea that any of this is going on. He just knows it's been 5 minutes and he's gonna move on with his night. So he drives away, has no idea. And then this person comes and stands over top of me like, "Oh, why did you do that? You see what happens when people are fighting? Nobody wins. Nobody wins in a fight." And I'm like
Mm.
screaming at the top of my lungs with my fingers gushing blood everywhere. Um, and then he picks me up, takes me, "Let me clean you up, let me clean you up. Why did you do that? Why did you have to do that? Why did I have to do this?" Gaslighting, manipulation, narcissism, all the things. It's abuse, all of it.
Mhm.
So eventually I got myself together, took a shower, ended up Ubering to my close friend's house, went to the emergency room, all the things. And then when I got back to Los Angeles, I'm like, if I call the police and if I get his kid taken away, he might try and kill me because that's clearly all he has left to live for. So let me just get a restraining order so I'm safe. I'm an attorney, right? I'm thinking, yeah, okay, court procedure, cool. No, it took me 6 months to get a restraining order. It took me 6 months to get a restraining order with the legal knowledge that I have, with the law degree that I have, with the resources that I have. I had to go back to court 5 separate times because you have to serve the person. If they don't show up, you have to serve them by mail. If they don't show up, you have to serve them by newspaper publication. And then that all comes with money. You have to spend money to get it mailed to all the places that he's known at. You have to spend money to get it published in the newspaper, all these sorts of things. 9 times out of 10, the people that are dealing with these domestic violence situations, they don't have an attorney and they're doing this all by themselves. They don't have a law degree, they don't have a legal background. So the first time that it gets continued, "I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm over it. It's too much. This is too exhausting. I can't come back to court again. I have the kids, or I don't have the money to get this mailed out." All these things. And it's just, it's not, the system is not made for easy protection. So if I didn't go back to court 5 times and spend over $2,000 to publish and to mail and to do all these things and waste all my time going and missing work and all these things, I still would not have gotten a restraining order. And so I think that that's like a really huge problem with, I don't know how it is anywhere else. I've not had to do this in any other city or state, but in Florida, I also worked in a domestic violence clinic, and 9 times out of 10 they don't show back up the next time because they're over it. And I think that it's like this whole system of domestic violence and the criminal system in general, um there's something has to change because it's not easy. And this is how people end up dead, if we're being honest. I know that took like a really dark turn, but it's true. Yeah.
Wow. It just goes to show we never know what people are going through, but again, the focus is on attorneys. And, you know, when we as attorneys can acknowledge, what happens, And actually, I know that's very difficult to explain and tell. And so thank you for doing that. And it is our hope, and I'm sure it's Ashley's hope as well, that, this message and in those statements that they help someone.
Yeah. And
Now,
also, sorry to cut you
mhm,
off. I know a
go
lot of
ahead.
people get a couple of things jumbled together. If you are in this situation, like I said, you can file a restraining order regardless. But in terms of legal action, there's a statute of limitations of 1 year here to file criminal charges, to press charges, to actually pursue it with the police. But there's a longer statute of limitations of 2 years to sue the person in civil court for damages. So if you don't want to do both, if you don't want to do all three with the restraining order, you can pick one. I personally chose not to press charges because I didn't want the person to be arrested and then the child to go into foster care, because that's what I fight against also. So I chose the two civil legal actions instead.
Now, it's interesting that you said that. When I worked at the DA's office in DeKalb County in Atlanta, Decatur rather, a lot of times the victim or victims did not want to press charges, which really made it difficult
Yep.
to sort of seek a level of legal action against the accuser, or
Because we're
the
scared.
the accused, I should say. Yeah. Can you talk about how difficult it is to uh, go through this legal process, maintain your job, that is, and just to bear the mental gravity and weight of such an awful travesty happening?
Yeah, it really is hard. And like at the end of the day, excuse my language, I'm a tough bitch. Like I really am. Like there's no way around that. So the way that that scenario destroyed me, and I'm a strong woman, I cannot imagine being in other people's feet. And I also don't have children. And I also don't have children with this person. So there are so many people who go through this and they don't have the resources. They're not, you know, mentally or physically strong. They're not, they don't have they have children attached to these other people. I get it. But whenever you get to the criminal side of things, you don't want to press charges because you're scared of retaliation. You're scared of, well, what's going to happen with the kids? What's going to happen with, he's going to come after me, all these sorts of things. And then when you don't press charges, then you're like, well, you didn't press charges, so it must have not really happened. Like, there's no win in this scenario. There's always going to be some sort of negative outcome. I had to move houses because I was scared. I had to quit my job because my mental, I was working for children. I was working at the DCFS Law Center. I had 180 kids on my roster that were abused and neglected. How am I supposed to advocate for them when I was just abused? Like, it was not
Mm.
clocking for me. Like, nothing in here was working. And I had to give it up. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. A lot of people just, oh, he won't do it again, or oh, I'm just going to move past this. But you also are not holding that person accountable. And guess what? I advocate for children. I advocate for humans. I advocate for rights. If I'm not going to advocate for myself, how is Susie and Sally and Johnny going to trust me to advocate for them if I'm not even going to stand up for myself? So my
Mm.
trial was set 3 years out. I got to deal with this for at least 1,000 times longer than the relationship even lasted. But guess what? If I don't do it, the next person might not do it. And if I don't stop him, he's going to keep doing it again and again and again. And that really is just the takeaway, because if you don't hold people accountable, they're going to do it again, especially if it's who they are. Sometimes, yeah, oh, he slipped up one time. That's not really who he is. If that's the truth, I love that. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to do it again. So again, if I'm not going to stand up for myself, how is someone else going to trust me to fight for them? It doesn't work like
Mm.
that.
Now, another difficulty with this situation is that none of this happened in the state in which you were residing. So, can you explain to the audience what happens when you have a multi-jurisdictional issue like you do now?
That is a great question. And actually, it was even more complicated because I live in California. He did live in California, but he also took residence in another state in the Northeast. But the incident also started in Georgia, and we also road tripped for like 10 hours. So there's a lot that comes into play with that because you can file a civil suit where you reside, where you're domiciled, which I could file it in California. But he can also file one, or I can also file one in the Northeast where the incident ended and where he lived. Or I can file it in any of those other states where the abuse took place because it was where the injury occurred. So, of course, I'm going to choose California because I live here. I'm going to go to court. I'm going to do it here, whatever. But also, there were a lot of audio and video recordings. That's another legal issue, because some states are two consent states. California, if I'm recording somebody, I have to let them know, hey, I'm recording you, and they have to say, okay. Otherwise, I can't use it for anything. Well, the states that I recorded all those things that I had to transcribe and listen to over and over and over and over and over again to transcribe, they were in states that are one consent state. So I can use that in court because in, where was it? South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, wherever, those states are one consent states. So I can use them as legal evidence. But whenever you're dealing with all these different states and crossing borders and all the things, you do have to pay attention to the laws in that state, or else, the court can kick it out if they don't have jurisdiction over it, for sure.
Today's episode is going to be very real and in depth. We'll be talking about topics such as domestic violence, interpersonal um, issues that can stem from that, from childhood trauma to even managing things as adults. So you may hear language and topics that are a little bit more terse and may make you feel uncomfortable, but it is important that we get this message across, and it's important that people understand that the backgrounds of lawyers is more than just them going into court, but more so who they are as a person. Ashley, you want to take it away for us?
Yes, thank you. And while you were saying that, I just remembered my little domestic violence diagram bubble that I think I showed you the other day. So I'm gonna send it to you so you can show it to the people because there's just so much more that stems from quote unquote domestic violence. Like there's so many things that people don't account for. There's so many issues that cause the cycle of violence. There's so many things that come from domestic violence, and like I just think that it's not talked about enough, and I think it's normalized, and it's just there needs to be some more conversation around it because in 2025 it's still like a very prevalent issue that just it just shouldn't, especially ever since COVID. Like I feel like COVID got the brunt of
Mm,
it because everybody was at home with each other when they're not normally at home with each other. Kids are at home all
mm.
day. People don't have jobs and they were just, stuck together for a long time. I feel like there was a huge spike around that time, but I feel like, nobody talks about it anymore. But here we are, and we're going to get into it.
So now we have, let's say, we have a woman with kids, or just a woman who has been, abused, assaulted by a person that they're talking with, or just a man in general. I know that we were talking about the multi-jurisdictional issues that you had as far as trying to bring the person who abused you to justice. Someone that's not an attorney, could you walk us through what those steps should be from beginning to end as to how they can go about getting justice for the things that have happened to them?
So there's going to be, of course, every city, state, locality, every different place is going to be different for the most part, but in general, you can again choose between which avenues, which routes you want to take. As far as filing for a restraining order, you do have to go to court. For certain different restraining orders, you can apply for it online, but you do have to go through the court process, and that starts with serving the defendant. So that's probably for most people going to be the biggest hurdle. You have to personally serve them. And that means someone other than you has to physically, someone over age 18 has to physically hand this person the papers. And if you can't physically hand this person the papers, you have to show up in court and say, Judge, I tried to hand this person the papers. I was unsuccessful. They'll continue it. They'll tell you to try again. um, you can have sheriffs serve them for a domestic violence restraining order, or for most restraining orders, you can have the sheriffs serve them. But again, they're only going to make their one attempt. They're not really going to go out of their way because it's really, at the end of the day, it's not their business. So they're going to make an attempt. If they can't make an attempt, you have to file the documents that they give you saying, hey, service was not possible. Then you have to show that to the court. If that's still not successful, it's going to get continued again, and you can then ask for different ways to serve them. Well, I have this mailing address, I have multiple email addresses, I know which city they're living in now, and the judge will decide on their own discretion which avenues you can take, but you have to serve them in order for anything to happen. And only after a certain point of attempted service will the judge say, you know what, you have enough evidence here, it's clear they're not going to show up, maybe I'll grant this in their absence. But that's like a last resort determination on the judge's part. And they're very reluctant to do that because the person has to at least know that this is coming, which is what the service is for. Hey, you're being quote unquote sued. You have to show up in court. And again, that's the hardest part. Once they are served, hopefully they show up. Then you can, prove your case and argue your case. But that's also difficult because you have to face your abuser in court. Um, that's really tough. You can apply to do it virtually in some jurisdictions. Some jurisdictions are very serious about still being present in person, but then you have to face your abuser. If you don't have an attorney, which 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have your attorney in a restraining order scenario, um, you have to face your abuser. You have to prove your case. Or if they don't show up even after being served, that's the judge is like, okay, well, they didn't show up, but they knew about it. We can proceed with granting this if there's enough evidence.
Now, what happens if the sheriff's or the service processor gets to the door and it's not the person that needs to be served, but it's somebody else? Can
If
they?
it's their if it's their home address or their business address, you can serve somebody. Hey, is this so and so's house? Is this so and so's business? Boom, cool, you've been served. If they're like, I have no idea who that is, they don't live here, blah 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 blah, it's not really gonna fly. Um, and that's where the next step is usually substitute service by mail. But with that, you also have to have an address for it to get to,
Hmm,
and that's often an issue as well.
hmm. Okay. So now that we have served our person, then what are the next steps that we take?
You have to go to court. You have to face your abuser and you
Okay.
have to prove your case. And again, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be yourself without an attorney. And that's why most people don't show up again. Because,
Hmm.
I don't know, somebody contacted somebody, everybody made up, I'm not going to do this again. Or it just became to be too much. Trying to serve them, or maybe they're scared, maybe they're intimidated by now. You have to you got to do what you got to do. If you want protection, you have to fight for your protection, you know?
Right. Now, earlier you mentioned that you were a guardian ad litem, and you also mentioned that you worked with a child advocacy unit in Los Angeles. Can you explain to us what a guardian ad litem is and more detail about your work you did with the child advocacy program?
Yes. So again, everything is different in every state and every city. But growing up in Florida, in the St. Petersburg, Tampa area, there is a guardian ad litem program, and you, me, my grandma, my cousin, my friend, y'all can all volunteer as a guardian ad litem, and that essentially is a 30-hour training program. Once you finalize the training, you are assigned to a child or children, and you advocate for the best interest of the child, just as if you were an attorney in a legal clinic going to work for juveniles. So, what that means is you go visit the child, you visit their schools, you talk to the foster parents, you talk to their real parents if they're involved, aunties, uncles, brothers, cousins, whoever, to get a whole complete picture of what's going on in this child's life. And then you file your report, you file it, or sorry, you write your report, you file it, and then you go in front of the judge and say, hey, this is what I think is best for this child. This is in their best interest, and this is what they want. Those two things may not align, or they might. Kids often want to go back to their parents, even though they're abusive. That might not be in their best interest. It might be in their best interest to go with auntie or uncle, whoever it is, whatever it is. But in that jurisdiction, it can be anybody. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a doctor, a teacher, anything. It can be anybody who, of course, passes all the requirements and goes through the training process. In Los Angeles County, where I am an attorney, there is a children's law center, and I worked at the children's law center as an attorney. If you are taken away from your home into the foster care system in Los Angeles County, you are automatically assigned to an attorney, one of me. And that's essentially like eliminating the role of a guardian ad litem. There are still some pro bono programs, of course, but automatically you're taken into custody, you get an attorney. And so what that looks like is more of a round table. So CLC, Children's Law Center, is for obviously the child ages 0 to sometimes 21. You age out at 18, but you can be in extended foster care as you're transitioning out. Um, and then ladle legal, I forget what it stands for, but those are the parents attorneys. So mom, dad both get an attorney, maybe grandparent, whoever is the custodian gets an attorney, and then the state has an attorney. DCFS has an attorney, and then there's a social worker, and then there's the judge. So literally when you go to a hearing in juvenile justice world or foster care world in Los Angeles, it's a roundtable discussion. What does the child want? What does the mom want? What does the dad want? What does the state want? And what does the judge decide? So everybody goes around the table saying, this is the evidence that I have. This is what we need. And of course, there's a decision that's made by the judge at the end. And that kind of replaces the guardian ad litem situation because everybody's automatically a part of this legal process. Mom, dad, state, and child. And sometimes the children in a sibling group, they can have all the same attorneys if there's no conflict. But sometimes, unfortunately, issues are so deep or intricate that each child needs to have their own attorney. It's on a case by case basis because, God only knows what happens in people's homes, unfortunately. But that the idea is for every single person that's involved to have somebody advocating for their best interest. But mine, of course, is always going to be for the child. That was a
Ladies and
lot.
gentlemen, you said what now?
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that's why here at Keep It Legal, we have the best. I mean, that breakdown that you gave, it was masterful. And navigating the child advocacy process is very, very intricate. There are a lot of nuances and moving parts to it. Um, Once you finished at the Child Center, did you go on to do other works, or do you still keep in touch with that program?
So unfortunately, when I was working over there, thankfully, it was a contract position the first 6 months,
Mm,
because a lot of people can't do this work. I had 180 almost kids on my roster that were abused or neglected. Okay.
mm,
I was also being abused. Okay. Um, I was unable to continue working there. Unfortunately I had to take FMLA. I had to get into therapy. I had to get
mm,
on medication. I had to quit my job. I had to, contract was over. Sorry guys, I can't be the best advocate that I need to be for all of these kids because I'm clearly not well. So unfortunately, I lost the ability to do that in that moment, because of what I've been through, what I went through that year. But um, after that, I dove headfirst back into my entertainment. But that's always going to be where I'm passionate about. So whether I move back to Florida, whether I move to, I don't know, Wisconsin, whatever it is, I'm always going to find my way back to working with kids. Like even since then, I took a position doing an after school program at Gardena High School. It's never going to go away from me, just like music, just like helping people, just like, social justice in general. There are certain things that I'm never going to get away from. But to do that in its full capacity, which is why every position offered is a contract position, it's extremely, extremely traumatic. It's extremely taxing, and it takes a special kind of person to do it. Like my boss, he was phenomenal. Shout out to Juan Valles at the CLC. He is now a judge because he's that amazing. He specializes in this. He was born to do this. He's been doing it for decades. And it takes people like that who really truly care and really love what they do and are
mm,
capable of doing it because of how um, emotional that type of law can be. And I think I'll come back
mm,
to it maybe full time sometime in the future, but way in the future when I'm past all of my own trauma, and I can put that
mm.
part aside.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has certainly been a very great episode. We are going to do a follow episode to this, and one of my big and favorite topics is mental health. As some of you may or may not know, I am ADHD and bipolar. I used to suffer from suicide, anxiety, depression, very heavily. And I was fortunate and blessed enough to be able to rebound from that. So when we hear stories like Ashley's and others that you will soon come to hear, it's very important that we learn more about that and we know that mental health is very important and it's real and it's not rare and it's not really going anywhere. So I want to thank Ashley for being on the show. I'm pretty sure you guys were as enthused and engaged with her conversation and dialogue as was I. Ashley, do you have anything that you want to say before we take it home?
I just want to say thank you for giving me a platform to share my story, and hopefully it helps someone else with their story along the way.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jordan Gaither, and you have now finished watching an episode of Keep It Legal.